What if a bank robber's gunfire turned a quiet street into a battlefield with one brave cop standing in the way? In California, Officer David Brooks risked it all to stop a criminal. Stay tuned for a story of courage, danger, and a community's gratitude. In the bustling suburb of Crestwood Heights, California, where palm trees lined the streets and the Pacific breeze carried the scent of salt water, 38-year-old Officer David Brooks patrolled with a steadfast sense of duty. A veteran of the Crestwood Police Department with 12 years on the force, David lived in a modest apartment with his wife, Lisa, and their 10-year-old son, Ethan, dedicating his life to keeping his community safe. On the sunny afternoon of July 14th, 2026, David was on routine patrol in his cruiser, the hum of the engine a steady rhythm, the radio crackling softly with dispatch updates, when a call came through that would change the day. A bank robbery in progress at First Coastal Bank, just 3 blocks away. The suspect, 29-year-old Marcus Tate, had stormed the bank with a loaded handgun, his shouts echoing through the marble lobby as he demanded cash, the terrified tellers stuffing bills into a duffel bag with trembling hands. Marcus fled the scene on foot, the bag slung over his shoulder, his sneakers pounding the pavement as he darted through the streets of Crestwood Heights, the distant wail of sirens growing louder. David responded immediately, his cruiser screeching around a corner with a squeal of tires, his heart pounding as he spotted Marcus sprinting down a residential street, the duffel bag bouncing against his back, his gun still in hand, a glint of metal in the sunlight. At 2:15 p.m., David pulled ahead of Marcus, cutting him off at the intersection of Maple Drive and Oak Lane, the cruiser skidding to a stop with a sharp jolt, the smell of burnt rubber filling the air. "Police! Drop your weapon!" David shouted, his voice booming, as he leapt from the vehicle, his service pistol drawn, the weight of it steady in his hands. Marcus turned, his eyes wild with panic, and fired 2 shots, the deafening crack of gunfire shattering the suburban calm, the bullets whizzing past David and splintering a nearby mailbox with a loud thunk. David dove behind his cruiser, the metal door hot under the sun, his breath coming in sharp bursts as he radioed for backup, the static crackling with his urgent call. Shots fired, suspect armed, requesting immediate assistance. Marcus kept running, his footsteps pounding the pavement, the duffel bag slowing him down as he darted into a narrow alley between 2 houses, the shadows of palm trees stretching across the ground. David pursued on foot, his boots thudding against the concrete, his radio bouncing against his hip as he shouted again, "Stop, or I'll shoot." Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, their gasps audible as they watched the chase unfold, the tension thick in the air. Marcus turned at the end of the alley, firing another shot, the bullet grazing David's arm with a sharp sting, blood seeping through his uniform sleeve, the pain searing but not enough to stop him. David gritted his teeth, his focus unshaken, and tackled Marcus to the ground, the duffel bag spilling cash across the pavement with a rustle of bills, the gun skidding out of reach with a metallic clatter. The 2 men struggled in the alley, the scuff of their shoes against the concrete, a chaotic sound, Marcus's grunts mixing with David's commands to stay down. David finally pinned Marcus, his knee pressing into the suspect's back, and snapped the handcuffs around his wrists, the sharp click of metal, a triumphant sound, as Marcus's resistance faded, his breathing ragged. "You're under arrest," David said, his voice steady, despite the pain in his arm, the blood staining his sleeve, a stark contrast to the sunny day. Backup arrived moments later, the wail of sirens growing louder as 2 more cruisers pulled into the alley, officers spilling out with their weapons drawn. their shouts overlapping as they secured the scene. The rustle of cash being collected, a reminder of the robbery's stakes. David stood, his arm throbbing. As the other officers took Marcus into custody, the suspect's head hanging low as he was led to a cruiser, the door slamming shut with a heavy thud. Neighbors poured out of their homes, their footsteps quickening as they gathered at the edge of the alley, their voices rising in a wave of applause and cheers that echoed through the street, a heartfelt show of gratitude for David's bravery. A 60-year-old retiree, Helen Carter, shouted, "Thank you, officer," her voice trembling with emotion, the clap of her hands leading the crowd's ovation. David managed a tired smile, the adrenaline still coursing through him, his uniform sleeve now soaked with blood. The pain a dull ache as he waved off their praise, his focus already shifting to the next task. Paramedics arrived shortly after, their ambulance pulling up with a soft screech, the medics rushing to David with a med kit, the crinkle of bandages loud as they insisted on treating his wound. "It's just a graze. I'm fine," David said, his voice firm, though the sweat on his brow betrayed the pain. The lead medic, 34-year-old Rachel Evans, wrapped his arm, the snap of the bandage a sharp sound, and urged him to take the rest of the day off. But David shook his head, his jaw set with determination. "There's still work to be done," he said, his tone unwavering. As he adjusted his badge, the metal glinting in the sunlight, and returned to his cruiser, the engine roaring to life as he drove back to the station, the cheers of the crowd fading behind him. At the precinct, David filed his report, the clack of the keyboard a steady rhythm as he detailed the chase, the gunfire, and Marcus's arrest, the ache in his arm a constant reminder of the day's events. His captain, 55-year-old Linda Hayes, commended his bravery, her voice warm, as she said, "You did good, Brooks. Take it easy tomorrow." But David declined, already planning his next shift. The hum of the precinct's fluorescent lights a familiar backdrop as he finished his paperwork. The weight of his duty heavier than the pain in his arm. News of the incident spread through Crestwood Heights, shared during evening walks and whispered at the local diner, the community hailing David as a hero, their gratitude a quiet undercurrent in the coastal suburb. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the Pacific, David returned home, the creak of his apartment door a welcome sound as Ethan ran to greet him, his small voice shouting, "Dad, you're on the news." Lisa embraced him, her hug tight, the scent of her lavender shampoo a comforting contrast to the day's chaos. Her whispered, "I'm so glad you're safe," a balm to his weary soul. David sat on the couch, the springs creaking beneath him, his bandaged arm resting on a pillow, the faint sound of the ocean waves through the open window a reminder of the peace he'd fought for, the neighborhood now safer because of his courage. And so, a routine patrol became a battle for justice in Crestwood Heights, California. Officer David Brooks put his life on the line to stop a dangerous criminal. Would you have done the same? What do you think? How can we better support our local heroes? Share your thoughts and join us next time for another tale of bravery. Until then, stay safe. Thank you for listening.